The subject had heard the rumors about the psychoactive potential of DXM for years before. Out of sheer boredom, experimentation with the material was undertaken. The subject was quite experienced in the realm of entheogenics, with the following experiences under his belt: LSD, including a 4-hit blotter acid trip psilocybin, including a 5+ gram psilocybe mushroom trip DPT. The subject has binged on this mind bender many times. XTC, multiple double drops and 1 triple drop trip ketamine, both via insufflation and IM. Heroic doses. So, the subject was certainly in a position to pass judgment on the relative worth of DXM. The first experiment involved the consumption of a 4 ounces bottle of cough syrup containing only DXM as the active ingredient. Subject was careful to avoid medicines which combined DXM with such nasty additives as acetaminophen, pseudoephedrine, guaifenesin, etc. The red, sticky syrup was painfully consumed in approximately 10 minutes. Over the next 2 hours or so, the only noticeable effects were ever-growing nausea, bloating and an annoying sense of fatigue. Near the end of this period, however, the subject entered a fast food restaurant so as to amend themselves of the facilities. At this point, for a brief spell, the only psychoactive aspect of the experience was realized, which consisted of a vague sense of confusion upon entering the restaurant. The sensation bore a vague, superficial resemblance to a low dose of ketamine, though it was in no way enjoyable or interesting. This feeling dissipated once the subject left the restaurant, and within a half hour or so the subject was more or less at baseline. This experience left the subject with little interest in DXM or with any desire to explore the substance further. A couple of years later, however, while perusing the net, the subject happened across a series of articles on DXM experiences which reawakened his interest in the material, particularly the DXM FAQ, which outlines various dosage levels and plateaus of experience. The subject thought to himself, maybe 4 Oz's in a stomach pre-soaked with beer. Oh yes. The subject had drank about 6 beers before consuming the cough syrup. Isn't a fair trial. And decided to give it another whirl. This time 2 4 ounces bottles were consumed, which should have provided a mid-range experience according to most of the stuff circulating the net. The psychoactive effects that resulted, which kicked in about a half an hour after drinking it, were indeed more substantial than they had been with the previous experiment. This time around, an unmistakably dissociative buzz could be felt, vaguely comparable to ketamine but much less interesting and not particularly enjoyable. No nausea was experienced this time around. The high might perhaps best be described as having given the subject a sense that, well, okay, there is something going on here, but it's not particularly interesting and I can see no compelling reason to explore it further. Upon lying down to sleep, the experience came as close as it ever was to achieving some redeeming recreative value. Their subject found lying with eyes closed particularly relaxing, and rather enjoyed the slight dissociative chaos that rambled on behind his closed eyes. All in all, however, it just was not a very interesting experience. It wasn't physically or mentally trying or in any way uncomfortable. It simply did not provide the subject with any desire to explore the substance further. Nor were there any indications that higher plateaus might be particularly rewarding. The effects of this mid-range experience might easily have been anticipated from the effects of the first threshold level experiment. In conclusion, I suspect that those with limited experience with true psychedelics and dissociatives might find DXM a nice, easily obtained legal high, but I can't imagine anyone with access to anything better ever seeking it out. It can be best described as a marginally dissociative sedative. All in all, I think beer is more interesting than DXM.